I'm Carrie Michael with Disability Rights Arkansas, and I am here with two of my beautiful colleagues. I have Mollie Hernandez, who is an advocate at DRA, and Jen Goodwin, who is an attorney here. Thanks, y'all, for joining us today. Wanted to talk a little bit about what you all do. Mollie and Jen do some really important work for DRA. They're working on helping to remove barriers to competitive integrated employment for individuals with disabilities. I would love for y'all to tell us a little bit about how you do that and the folks that you serve. Jen, tell us a little bit about how you do that.
So, I mean, we get all different kinds of calls and different people who have different things that have come up that have stopped some of their forward movement and getting either employed or staying employed. So that can have all sorts of different looks. So sometimes it is that they need certain accommodations at their job that they're at currently. Sometimes they need to figure out how to navigate getting a job with needing accommodations, or when to disclose, or any of those sorts of issues. And then other people were getting more at a different phase where they still need to complete some education so that they can, further their career and employment goals, or they're in that transition phase where they're coming out of high school and they're trying to figure out what's next. And so we're able to help navigate the whole program and let them know what programs are out there that can assist them, and then also just helping on the ground with figuring out goals and what's going to come next.
Wow, I mean, that's big stuff, and it's super important to people's lives. Mollie, we talked a little bit about removing barriers. What are some of those barriers, and how do you all help people remove them?
Sure.
Some barriers that maybe you don't necessarily think of right off the bat.
Absolutely. And of course, when we're talking about looking at competitive integrated employment, we're looking at people with disabilities working alongside non-disabled peers. So for integrated employment and for it to be competitive, we want to make sure that people are working in an environment where they're getting a competitive wage, competitive benefits, and in an environment where it's fully integrated, disabled people working alongside non-disabled people in a career path that empowers them and impassions them. So that's something we want to look at, and barriers to that can come in the form of truly physical barriers. Maybe a person uses a mobility aid, maybe they use a wheelchair or a walker, or maybe they have a vision impairment and they need just additional screen reading software or a magnifier to accomplish the same job that someone without a disability has. Other times, like Jen mentioned, it could be that they need additional education to achieve the career goal that they want. And sometimes you have to keep in mind that people with disabilities, they may be born with the disability. This may be something that they're coming out of high school and going into college or vocational training and need support. Or it could be an acquired disability, which is something I have personal experience with, where the disability came later in life, and it's you either want to work to stay in the career that you're in, or you need some support to find a different career that's more suitable to the path that you're on now, however life changes. So again, barriers, like I said, most people think physical, but it can come in the line of many other things. And, let's not forget, sometimes it's just other people's perceptions are our greatest barrier. What other people think we can and cannot do. So when we say education, it's not just educating the person with the disability, it's educating coworkers, it's educating employers to know that technology exists, mobility aids exist. There's a world of assistive devices that can allow people to work in a competitive, integrated environment.
Do these services have impact on any other services that folks may be receiving?
Jen, do you want me to take that, or do you want to?
Sure, you can. Go ahead, Mollie.
Okay, so, when you enter the world of disability, there's a wide array of information, resources out there. I always say it is such a circuitous pipeline to try and navigate, very much so if you're new to disability. So one thing that we can help people with is just offer information and referral. And that's where we can just maybe point you in the right direction. If it's not necessarily something that we do, we can help you find the right agency to support you in your goal to rehabilitation. One barrier that is out there for people is if they have a disability and they're receiving benefits because of that disability. Sometimes that is a big barrier, that people are fearful of losing a benefit if they return to work. And there are agencies that can actually counsel people on that, about what impact any income could have on their benefit that they're receiving as a result of a disability. So absolutely, that, like I said, barriers can be physical, or they can be in a whole nother form, such as just the fear of what working could do to any benefit that they have.
So the barrier in this case just being information that may or may not be correct about, how they could and should be approaching this, set of challenges. Speaking of challenges, we are of course living, under a pandemic, and we're about to be returning to school under a pandemic, and all kinds of things are going on, and so, we talk a lot about the need to pivot. Lots of people are having to, they had a plan and now they're having to change their plan. What does this mean specifically for the folks that you serve? And Jen, do you want to kick us off?
Sure. Yeah, so we've got a lot of students who are in more of the transition phase right now, where they've come out of high school, they were operating under an IEP or a 504 plan, any of those sorts of things, and then they needed accommodations or help paying for college or whatever it is to be able to further their education and employment goals as well. And, they have a plan set for in-classroom learning. And so that's what they've been doing, maybe last year or however many years. And now we're looking at more virtual situations. So maybe they need internet access or different forms of technology or any of those sorts of things. And so oftentimes that can be taken care of through whatever agency they're working with or through their disability resources centers that's on campus, but sometimes it's not. And especially when everything is a bit chaotic right now, some people need some help navigating. And a lot of my clients call and they're like, I can't do this anymore. And we just need to talk through what accommodations would really help make them successful again. And so it just has to be a fluid conversation with everything in this environment right now. So we just encourage people that even if they were on a good steady track and now it's, some road bumps are coming up, just the nature of life itself right now, to call us and let's talk through it and see what we can do. If you need assistance or whatever program that you're already working with, if they need some help just navigating that as well, then we're happy to help facilitate that conversation.
Sure. Mollie, anything to add to that?
I think Jen covered it well. I think what everyone needs to just keep in mind is the accommodations that were in place 6 months ago might not be appropriate right now. And it's always okay to revisit whatever plan you have to achieve your educational or vocational goals. There's never a time where you should say, oh, well, my plan's here, this is not included. Go ahead, keep lines of communication open. Always have honest and frank conversations about, what you're trying to do and the impact of our current situation or our current environment, what it's doing to your disability, and how you can work around and, just get through these challenges together.
Sure. That actually leads in perfectly to something else that I wanted you all to speak to a little bit. And of course, in anybody's career path, there are all kinds of challenges and setbacks. How do you help people navigate all of those challenges, adding on, whatever disability they may be experiencing, and then adding on a pandemic? How do you all help folks navigate that bumpy road?
Just speaking from personal experience too. So, we've talked about it before, and just not even knowing what services were available out there. Mm-hmm. So I myself have a disability as well. So I have a spinal cord injury, that happened about 12 years ago. And at the time, that was completely overwhelming. That was my only focus, was, rehab and figuring out physically how to handle my disability. And then whenever I left rehab, I was given just a list of names and phone numbers. But I couldn't even focus on any of that, because all I wanted to do was focus on, feeding myself and walking, those sorts of things. But so later, I looked at this list on my refrigerator and I'm like, wait a second, I wonder what that group does, and I wonder what that group does. And so I kind of started calling people, and some doors really started opening for me as far as being able to work on independent living, and then being able to work on going back to school. And I already had my undergrad and I had a career that I loved before my injury, but it wasn't feasible after my injury, and I didn't know what would come next. But I was able to talk to an organization that kind of unlocked the doors for me to help with getting an accessible vehicle so that I could learn to drive again, so that ultimately I could go back to school and then get in a job and a career that I love as well. And so just not knowing what's out there is in and of itself the first barrier that so many people have. And that's why we encourage people to call us if you have those questions too, because even if it's not our organization, we can help you navigate the whole process. And just having somebody say, okay, these are your options and this is where to go, has been huge. And it's been really, really beneficial personally. And so I love getting to do that with clients as well.
Sure. Mollie, I'd love to hear from you on this. When you have folks who are, and I think just anybody having to navigate a multi-agency set of services, it can be frustrating. Sometimes there, are communication breakdowns that happen, or, what would you say to somebody who maybe has met with a little bit of a speed bump, or in navigating those services? Like, does no always mean no?
Right. It's one of those things that, if you have a plan, if you have a goal and you want to achieve it, everyone's going to say, don't let anything stop you. So work hard towards it, work with the agencies, but understand that sometimes, you may have to find a different path or push a little harder to achieve that goal. As Jen was talking about her personal experience, for me as well, and the pushback can come in different ways. I was blinded about 11 years ago. So Jen and I actually would follow along the same timeline. I was a teacher, and I thought that was the end for me. I was done. I went home. I thought, I'm blind. There's nothing more for me. And when a rehab agency reached out to me, there's nothing. I'm blind. There's nothing else I can do. So, I wouldn't be where I am. Jen wouldn't be where she is without the support of rehabilitation services in some form. So, for me, it took reaching back out and working closely with a vocational rehabilitation counselor to find my path and figure out where I needed to go. And, sometimes you may need support. You may need advocacy along the way. That's why we're here. There are times where you may want to appeal a decision. We're here for that as well. We can assist in a variety of levels, from offering information and resource options to helping you navigate the world of rehabilitation as an advocate or a legal representative. So I think what I wish I had known as I entered the world of disability is just knowing that no one goes into the field of rehabilitation, and I'm talking as a vocational rehabilitation counselor or any of that, to prevent people from achieving their goals. They're there to support, they're there to help. So it's to, work together, and we're here to work alongside as well to achieve the most positive outcome for anyone with a disability.
That's great. I want to make sure that we kind of underline something that you alluded to, and that is that you have the right to appeal any decision. you know, from any agency that's, you know, that's along the way. And it sounds like you all can help folks do that. Jen, I'd love to ask you sort of the same thing about, you know, any kind of wisdom that you would share with somebody who is first embarking on this process. Like, what do you wish you'd known?
I mean, I wish that I would have just known what all was out there to begin with. But the other thing that I've found along the way is that regulations change and that policies change too. So, you know, I was told in the beginning, you know, things like, well, this is a once in a lifetime offer and that sort of thing. And now the rules have changed on that. And so now there are things to keep people with disabilities employed instead of just get them out there initially. And so what I learned personally, and I like to share with clients now as well, is, you know, ask again. Let's see if it's still the same no, or if you can push a little further, because they recognize that we still need assistance at some points along the way, and that we're still super valuable in our employment, and they're willing to help. And so just, you know, check again, even though you think you know what it is. The policies have changed, and it's good to ask again.
I just think we can't emphasize that enough. Like, a career path for anyone is a long, you know, it's a long process. To do what you dream of doing takes a lot of patience, perseverance, and, you know, and what you all offer in the way of guidance is so needed, and I know it's appreciated. We have just a couple more minutes. Is there anything that I didn't ask you or that you want people to know about the services that you provide? And then we'll give some contact information. Parting shots, Mollie?
For me, I think it's always important to understand that, you know, although you think maybe your disability is not changing, the world is changing around you. It's becoming more accessible. The technology, the assistive technology that exists to support you both with independent living, education, and work, it's always changing. And I think it's good to continuously strive to educate yourself and, you know, make sure that the things you have or need are there and available to you to live the most independent life that you can.
Perfect. Jen?
I just want to piggyback on what she said, but I want to also mention that sometimes you personally don't even know what's out there, and somebody else may have a better idea of that too. So I've been pleasantly surprised multiple times along the way whenever I've found new gadgets or technology or anything that's really helped me that I had no idea even existed until I had a conversation with either other people with disabilities or people who work for different agencies to enlighten me and show me new things. And it's, you know, been a game changer multiple times along the way. So I know it can be for other people as well.
That's so great. Thank y'all so much for talking to us. I think just bottom line, if you imagine that things can be different for you, they probably can be. And Jen and Mollie can certainly help you on that journey. If any of this resonates with you, I hope you'll give us a call. You can give us a call at 800-482-1174. You can also visit us online at disabilityrightsar.org. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter. We get a lot of information out that way. And that phone number one more time, 800-482-1174. Mollie Hernandez and Jen Goodwin, thanks so much. Appreciate y'all, and thank you for the work that you do. We'll see y'all again soon.
Sounds good.
Thanks.
Bye.